This is Coach MJ. Welcome to the Real Mission Impossible show. We have on the show today the president of the Celebrity Speakers Bureau, Bruce Merrin, is here. And the stories that he has, the legacy that he has booked every celebrity under the sun. We'd like to find out how he did that, where it all started. Bruce, thank you so much. Welcome to the show.
Coach, I'm delighted to talk to you from Las Vegas, the entertainment capital of the world. It's great to see you and hear you.
Thank you, sir. And speaking of entertainment, Las Vegas has a big history, and I think I heard something that even your dad was involved with some of the founding fathers.
No, you're absolutely right. A lot of my history goes back to right here in Las Vegas. We moved here in 1956. I was in junior high at the time, Coach. My dad was the president of the Flamingo Hotel. This is in 1956. This is back in the mafia years where all the mob ran the city. But the great thing for me, I was in junior high, as I mentioned. So my dad and my mom would take me to see all of the big name entertainers: Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis, Judy Garland, Lena Horne. So I was exposed to entertainers when I was young and in junior high. And if I'll just share one story, Sammy Davis Jr. is probably one of the greatest Vegas entertainers of all time. So I'm a 12-year-old kid, and I had heard about Sammy Davis, and my mom and dad take me to the Sands Hotel where he's headlining, and Sammy does his show. I had never seen an entertainer like him. He always ends his show with Mr. Bojangles. So even though I was in junior high, I was like knocked out. So mom and dad took me backstage, and I was very polite. I shook his hand. I said, "Mr. Davis, it's so wonderful to meet you. I just want to tell you, I just decided I want to work in entertainment." So from that young age in Vegas, that's what got me in entertainment, thanks to my mom and dad, because I was around it. They took me to see Judy Garland, and I sat in the front row. I got chills. So I was really blessed. So I love entertainment. We do other things, of course, as well. But the entertainment was really what sparked everything, Coach.
And I heard that there was an interesting story about how you actually started your agency, because apparently you had a client who you booked on some entertainment show. Yes. And from there, something happened. Who was that?
No, you're right. You're right, Coach. That was the biggest thing in my company history. I was very fortunate to represent Michael Landon. In fact, when I had my first lunch with Michael Landon, we were sitting in a small, intimate restaurant, and Michael says to me, "Bruce, I'm working on a really exciting brand new show. It's called Little House on the Prairie." That's when I met Michael. So anyway, the first thing that I did with Michael was I got him on the Johnny Carson show, the Tonight Show. And after his guest appearance, Johnny came backstage. Johnny always loved Michael Landon. So he comes backstage, and keep in mind, Coach, I'm a young kid. This is my first year with my own company. And Johnny says, "How would you guys like to come to my home in Malibu? I'd like to invite you over for dinner." So I thought, my God, this is amazing. So Michael and I drove together to Johnny Carson's home in Malibu, right on the beach, gorgeous place. So Johnny opens up a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon. He toasts all of us, and he looks me in the eye. He says, "Bruce, I've known you for several years. I think you should start a Celebrity Speakers Bureau. I know you have a PR firm, but I think you should start a Celebrity Bureau." And I said, "Well, Johnny, it's a good idea, but I've never done that." He says, "I'm going to make it really easy for you, Bruce. I'm going to be your very first client." And then Michael Landon says, "Well, Bruce, I'll be your second client with a Celebrity Bureau." And then Ed McMahon called me the next day. He said, "Bruce, I hear you're having a new Celebrity Bureau." So that was 49 years ago, but that's how my Celebrity Speakers Bureau started. So imagine how blessed I was. And then that same week, I had Jackie Robinson and Muhammad Ali. They said, "I hear you guys are starting a Celebrity Bureau. Can I work with you?" So again, this goes back 49 years, but that's how my Celebrity Bureau started. So you talk about being blessed, Coach. I was really blessed.
Surrounded by entertainment, Hollywood royalty.
That's right.
On a spoon.
Royalty is the perfect word. And that's how I felt. And, I just felt so blessed, because talking about starting at the top, some people that want to start a speakers bureau, it's not an easy thing. And here I am starting out with legends,
Yeah. And where do you go from there, right? How do you go up?
No, you're right, Coach. It was really, really exciting. I'll never forget that, because they were the ones that really launched my career.
And could you just share with our audience here? I'm fascinated as a speaker. I'm listening to all this and I'm thinking, wow, you must have had a situation with one of these people that is just so memorable and possibly even would tickle our audience to hear about it.
Well, you're right. And my goodness, because Coach, we've been booking celebrities for all these years. But I'll start to answer your question with President Reagan. President Reagan was the very first speaker that was a past president that I ever dealt with. I had booked all of them from President Reagan on, but he was the very first one. And I met him. He had an office in Century City. So when I met him for the first time, I said, President Reagan, I have a booking for you if you like with Bank of America. This was in Los Angeles. So and by the way, forget whatever your politics are, one of the nicest people that I've ever met, President Reagan. So I accompanied President Reagan to his event at Bank of America, and I sat in the front row, and he got several standing ovations, and he was so charismatic. But it always stood out to me that I'm sitting there in the audience thinking, my goodness, Bruce, you just booked a past president that was so popular. And, again, this was in my young career. So that's something that I'll always remember.
Didn't you just want to pinch yourself, make sure that was all real? Because this sounds like a fairy tale to most people.
You are absolutely right. And the other thing that I'll share with you and your audience, because this was a first for me, I'd never been around Secret Service agents. And when I first met him, he said, Bruce, don't worry or be intimidated. All the Secret Service, they carry guns and holsters, but don't worry, it's nothing to worry about. But it was a new thing for me because I had never been around that kind of situation. But I'll never forget. I mean, I booked all the presidents. President Ford was amazing. In fact, I'll just share one story with you because this is a great story about President Ford. Here in the state of Nevada, I booked 5 different speakers in one day. So President Ford was the very first speaker. It was in a little small city called Mesquite, Nevada. So President Ford goes up. He does an amazing talk. He ends his talk. And I was just talking about Secret Service. So as soon as he ends, he gets a big standing ovation. The Secret Service stormed the stage and they're ready to rush him off to the limousine. He holds up his hand like this. He says, guys, I think these nice people in the audience have some questions for me. He stayed for 30 minutes answering questions. And I just thought, what a class act. Wow. He could easily just gone off and gotten into the limo and say, oh, I got my money. It was such a nice thing for me to observe that whether he was a past president or not, he had that empathy for the people in the audience. So, Coach, that really impressed me a lot.
And would it be okay to share with us who was the most difficult of your clients to manage, either showing up on time or in their demeanor?
Yeah, well, the one that immediately comes to mind, and it's funny because this particular event happened in Orlando. When we think of all the original astronauts, there were 7 astronauts. And as you know, the 7 astronauts were so famous. Anyway, Scott Carpenter was one of the original 7 astronauts. And what I'm going to tell you, he's written books about it. He was an alcoholic, okay? But I had no idea that he had a problem drinking. This was at the time, okay? So I booked him for McDonnell Douglas. This is the big aircraft company. This was their annual event. They had people from all over the world that came to see Scott Carpenter, the very famous astronaut. So I'm there on the podium, on the dais, and they introduce Scott, and he walks up there and he's like stumbling. And I'm seeing, I'd never met him before. I had just talked to him. It was very obvious that he was inebriated, that he was drunk. So literally he went to the stage, and I'll make it short. He lasted for 2 minutes. And I was so embarrassed. My face was getting hot, and I'm thinking, oh my God. So the president of McDonnell Douglas went up there and he said, Mr. Carpenter, I think it's a good idea that you come over here and sit down. After that, and years later, Scott came out with a book mentioning that he was an alcoholic, and then he did recover, and then he was okay. But when we say difficult, that was one of the most difficult and frustrating incidents that I've ever had, because obviously for my client, I wanted to be able to please them. So that's the first thing that flashed into my mind.
Incredible. It sounds like he got the help he needed. So
yes.
Now, what about any singers? What other singers could you share with us?
Well, the most amazing one in my life was Elvis Presley, because I had mentioned our family moved to Las Vegas in 56. In 56, 57, all of Elvis's songs, Hound Dog and Don't Be Cruel and Teddy Bear, I was a huge Elvis fan from junior high. So when I graduated the UCLA Film School, I got a job at MGM Studios, the legendary studio, and I had an office in the Thalberg building. And the president of MGM came into my office and he said, Bruce, how would you like to have lunch with Elvis Presley in the commissary? We have a new film that's coming out. It's called Elvis on Tour. I think you would be great to work with Elvis. So I thought, oh my God, I feel like I've died and gone to heaven, because he was an idol of mine. So I went to the commissary and I met Elvis, and I had known, because I had read so much about him, I knew that he loved his mom with all his heart. So when we were in the commissary, I said, Elvis, we're really going to get along. We are both mama's boys, because I'm a total mama's boy. So he smiled. And by the way, he's the most handsome guy that I've ever met. That smile that Elvis had. So that was an amazing experience. So I worked with Elvis, and for any of your people that are watching or listening, Elvis on Tour is a really good film. It shows him all around the country when he's touring and doing his shows. And it's really a good film. So while I've certainly worked with so many legendary singers, I'll never forget working with Elvis. And then I wound up working with him for many, many years. And I will share, because I'm here in Vegas. Everybody remembers when he headlined at the International Hotel here in Las Vegas. His closing song coach was always, it's called the Trilogy. And to this day, when I hear it, it gives me chills. I've never been in a showroom where one song is just like so incredible. What he does in the Trilogy, he integrates 3 different songs in it. But every show, if people wanted to Google, you can see Elvis singing the Trilogy, and he's just an amazing man, very generous, very down to earth, and I'll never forget the privilege of working with Elvis Presley.
Incredible. I'm just gobsmacked listening to this, and very envious, Mr. Bruce, to have you tell us these stories, and what a blessed life you had to have this kind of exposure to some of your idols and ours. Yes.
No, I feel like I'm the luckiest guy in the world, because to do something that you're really passionate about and you really enjoy. I mean, for example, people have mentioned to me, hey, Bruce, have you ever thought about retiring? And I will never retire. I love what I do. My dad lived to be 99 and a half. My mom lived to be 98 and a half. So I've got good genes. And because I love what I do, I would never retire.
I hear you. But of course, life has its way of visiting different challenges on all of us. And we spoke about this earlier before the show.
Yes.
You have faced some adversity in your life. It hasn't always been roses on every doorstep.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, life is a roller coaster. I don't care who you are. If you're a billionaire, you're still going to have an emotional roller coaster. But for me, it goes back to Vietnam. I was in Vietnam in 1968. I was in the UCLA Film School. Thank you so much. But I was in the UCLA Film School, finished my junior year. Anyway, I got drafted. So I wound up in Vietnam, and this was in 68. That was the most dangerous year that Vietnam ever had. The Tet Offensive started in January.
Lots of body bags.
Yeah, it was awful. So anyway, my story is this, because when we talk about dealing with adversity, we were on a very desolate road in Vietnam. It's hard to think about it now, but we were in an Army Jeep. I was behind a machine gun. And I said to our driver, who was an MP, military police, can we stop and get a photograph? This is so beautiful. I'd love to get a photograph. So we stopped, we got a photograph. And then my dear friend who was sitting next to me, seated while I was at the machine gun, He said, Bruce, you've been manning the machine gun. It's my turn. Let me take over the machine gun. So he did. The Jeep takes off. 5 minutes later, there's a sniper VC attack, and they mortally wounded my friend. And from the machine gun, he fell into my lap. He was mortally wounded and died. I mean, it was the saddest day that I had ever experienced in my life. And it's something that I'll never, ever forget. So when we talk about adversity, to this day, there are times that I go back to that incident because it's something that you never, ever forget, Coach. You never forget it.
I can't even begin to imagine how horrific that might have been. And we, as a veteran, we honor those of you who served in combat. And it just seems to me that you had even a harder time because processing that trauma and then coming back to the United States after that, it wasn't exactly a warm welcome, was it?
Oh, I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. It actually was the opposite. And I'll tell you a story, but keep in mind, most of us were drafted. It wasn't like we were looking to go to Vietnam, but we were drafted. So anyway, all of us Vietnam vets, we landed in San Francisco. That's where we landed. So when we landed in San Francisco, we got off the plane. We literally kissed the ground. We were so happy to be home. So we walked into the terminal. We had our Army uniforms on. And again, whatever your politics are, you put them aside. This big group of protesters surrounded us. Now imagine we're in our Army uniforms, and they were nasty, and a bunch of them spit on me. They literally spit on me. So I had to go into the restroom to get cleaned up. So anyway, that was our warm welcome back to the U.S. So it wasn't an easy thing during that time at all. Yeah.
And then what age were you when you came back?
I was around 23, give or take, but around 23. So I was still a very young man. So I went back to UCLA and I finished my final year of the film school. But when you're in a war zone, anybody that's been in a war zone, they understand you can try to describe it, but there are certain things that you just never forget. And when they talk about PTSD, so many of us have the PTSD because these memories, constantly come back. To this day, Coach, just as an example, if I hear a helicopter whizzing around, I immediately go back to Vietnam because the sound of helicopters were nonstop when you were in Vietnam. So, there are those kind of memories that never leave you. But what I will share, because you're a brilliant guy, Coach, you can imagine the why me syndrome. I've dealt with that all my life because I was so sad that my dear friend died because, I was behind that machine.
Could have been there. It was 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, 5 minutes ago, it could have been me. So while I'm blessed and I've had an amazing life, thank God, I feel so bad for him. But like you were just saying, what if he didn't say that? It would have been me,
Yep. And yet you've gone on to make a difference in so many different lives since then. You've taken those adversities and you've turned them into positive energy. You fought through your own trauma, your own PTSD, your own memories, and you made new memories by empowering and helping others, including new celebrities who were just getting started. What's some of the newest celebrities, let's say back in those days, that were just starting out that you said, well, okay, I'll give you a chance?
Well, some of the ones, and I'll talk sports because, Coach, I'm a huge sports fan. Before we moved to Las Vegas, we lived in New York City, and I went to the Brooklyn Dodgers game. So I grew up a Dodgers fan. When we moved to Sherman Oaks, California, and then Calabasas, many of the LA Dodgers lived in Calabasas. So the reason I'm telling you the story, so like Steve Garvey was my neighbor, and Ron Say was my neighbor, and Dusty Baker, and Don Sutton, Kirk Gibson. So
and for our audience, all of these people were on baseball cards, which are
exactly. No, exactly. Yes, but being a sports fan, it was so much fun for me that I could book some of my heroes. And of course, the playoffs are going on right now. And when you think of maybe the most famous World Series home run of all time, it was Kirk Gibson. And as a result of Kirk hitting that home run, I booked him many times after, that famous call by Vin Scully. And by the way, Kirk Gibson is an amazing guy. But in the area of sports, it was so much fun for me to book some of the people that were my heroes. But you mentioned about young, a lot of them when I started out were young players. When I first met Steve Garvey, he was my neighbor. He was a rookie with the Dodgers. You know, I mean, he wound up becoming a superstar. But you know, when I started working with Steve, he was a rookie. And in football, there's one other thing I'll share. I'm also an LA Rams fan. They're not doing great this year, but they did win the Super Bowl last year. But Pat Hayden was a rookie quarterback going way, way back. He graduated SC, and he was the starting quarterback with the Rams. So again, talking about a young career. So I was booking Pat Hayden in his very first rookie year. So, you know, fun memories in the sports area. I'll never forget all the sports heroes that I booked, Coach.
And those people that you have booked over the years, do you ever hold a reunion for them or some special dinner, or do you get together on certain holidays? Is there a fraternity or a family kind of atmosphere with some of your speakers?
Not with all of them, because there are so many of them. But when I go to certain cities, like what just flashed in my mind, one of the greatest running backs of all time, Walter Payton, you know. So whenever I had gone to Chicago, I would visit him. You know, his nickname was Sweets. So I will see people individually, and that, like I was in the Pittsburgh area at a time when Terry Bradshaw was there. So I maintain the relationships, but I've never done a fraternity thing. But it's funny that you mentioned that, because for my high school, I'm doing our high school reunion here in Vegas in two weeks. So those kind of events are fun. But you put an idea in my head. Maybe that's something I should plan with all these wonderful people.
Yeah,
you know?
you've got the All-Star Club. Those that are still around, whether they can join you physically or virtually, let me know. I'll kind of help you organize that one.
No, definitely, Coach. One other thing, because I did live in LA for so many years, I am also an LA Lakers fan, and all of the Lakers. I mean, Kobe Bryant and Kareem and Jamal Silk Wilkes, all those Lakers I booked. So again, that's what's so fun for me. I'm working with these stars, but I'm also a sports fan. So it goes further than that. And by the way, I will share, we lost Kobe Bryant way too early, but what a class act he was. He was really nice. No big ego. Magic Johnson, same thing. I booked him many times.
Yeah, and you know, I'm just going to talk about ego for a moment, because you mentioned some people. Of course, everyone that I know has great admiration for Muhammad Ali.
Yes,
you've met him many times and had events with him. Apart from anything else, did you find his ego? Did he have humility in all of his cocky arrogance? Because that was just showbiz stuff.
No, Coach, you're absolutely right. That was all the show business aside. And I'll answer the question. But when I met Ali for the first time, we really hit it off, because I was actually born, in Louisville. I was born in Louisville. So the first time I met Ali, I said, Ali, because he liked to be called Ali, you're going to really get a kick out of this. I was born in Louisville, just like you. So, oh my God, we really hit it off. But when it's not showtime for Ali, he was down to earth and the nicest guy. I mean, of course, the cameras go on, and you know he was Ali, but he was a wonderful, wonderful guy. And what I will share with you, even though yes, I was in Vietnam, I have the utmost respect for Ali that he gave up several years of his life. He was so committed anti-war and anti-violence that you and a lot of the people know, he lost a bunch of years boxing because of that commitment. So I really admire him so much, Coach.
Yes, of course, it's very good. Listen, I don't think there's anybody who's ever said that, you know, war is always fair, and that, you know, there's not really anything good comes out of it. And certainly, you know, a lot of people who lost time, their lives, limbs from that war, felt today like it was a war fought in vain. I mean, look, there's tourism now. We're friends with Vietnam. There's McDonald's over there.
Yes.
What changed?
Oh, yeah. The answer is nothing. Yeah, absolutely. And when we were young kids over there, I mean, the majority of us, when we went back, it's like we hold our hands in the air and said, what are we doing over there? You know, honestly, that's how the great majority of us felt. But I give
But it wasn't
Ali.
your fault, Bruce. You were drafted like
I know.
thousands and thousands of young boys were drafted and, you know, told, okay, listen, there's some people over there. They haven't done anything wrong to you, but I want you to hate them from now. And we're going to train you to do that. We want you to go over there and bang, bang. That's crazy.
Yeah. And coach, 56,000 plus died. Also, if you have time, because you're in Orlando, you want one quick Orlando story that you'll enjoy?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big fan.
Disney World is here. So, you know, of course.
Yes. Oh, and I think that's wonderful. Obviously, I told you earlier, I graduated the film school and I have worked with a lot of film stars. I had a client that they're called Loma, Loma. It's a big insurance group. They called me up and they said, can you book William Shatner? And I said, you know, William Shatner, the actor. I said, I have not booked William Shatner, but if you'd like to book him, I'm positive that I can reach him if you'd like to book him. So long story short, I reached him 2 calls and I reached William Shatner. I did book him and I went to Orlando. And there was a place at the time, I don't know if it's still there, Coach, called the Dolphin Court. Now, I don't know if it's still there, but anyway, that's where William Shatner gave his talk. And I was there with him. And, oh, they were just so happy because they were big William Shatner fans. And I was the hero, Coach, because I booked who they wanted, you know?
Right. Well done. And he's riding now on a new book, Boldly Go, and amazing. He's got the genes like you and your family, Bruce.
Yeah, no, you're right. No, you're right. He's something like 91, 92, but he's up there. And certainly, you know,
William Shatner has always been up there.
Yeah, you're right. No, that's a good line. And you're absolutely right. But yeah, he's amazing. And you're right about that book. He talks about that experience going up in the rocket. And anyway, I have a lot of respect for him. And he made me a hero because everybody loved him. He stuck around and did photos with everybody. So that was right there in Orlando.
Tell us about what happened during the pandemic, because whether you call it the pandemic or the damn-demic, the entertainment business suffered, events suffered. Nobody was going anywhere. We were afraid of each other. We were wear a mask, don't wear a mask. How did that impact your business, Bruce?
Yeah, it impacted us in a very negative way. But here's what happened. There was a best-selling book, Coach, called The Paradigm Shift. I don't remember the author, but it was a #1 bestseller. But what I finally wound up doing was creating a paradigm shift, because for many months we were not booking anybody. I mean, usually 99% of our bookings are in hotels or resorts. They're in places. So now, you know, we're on Zoom, and Zoom is very common. But way back at the beginning, there wasn't a lot of Zoom and things like that. So I talked with my business partner on the bureau, Brian Ruff. I said, we've got to do something. Why don't we do a big mailing to all the certified meeting planners? Let them know they can still book our speakers, but we'll do them on a Zoom platform, but we'll do them. They won't be there in person, but we'll do that. So when we sent out that first big mailing, as an example, Shark Tank, the show Shark Tank, we booked Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful. He was the first booking that we booked that way. And then in Florida, Les Brown, who's a legendary motivational speaker, he lives in Jacksonville. We booked him. So that was the beginning of kind of that paradigm shift, where we had to go from doing the live events to encourage these people. Look, you can still do your event, but they'll do a Zoom or TV platform. And that's what happened. So for about 2 years, the companies continued to do the bookings, but they were done in that way. So we had to create a different paradigm shift, because we couldn't book at the hotel resorts.
Yeah. And now what's happened? Things are starting to come back, or do you find?
Yes. Oh yeah. Very much so.
Are hybrid events also popular?
Yeah, absolutely. The answer is yes. But I would say 80% plus of the bookings we're doing are live events. The other 20, some of the companies are still doing virtual events. And either way, I'll share with you, and you'll get a kick at this. Kevin O'Leary is such a nice man. he said, Bruce, I think that's the easiest booking I ever did. It was a 1 hour gig. He didn't have to fly to Vegas. He didn't have to get on a plane and all that.
Didn't have to put pants on.
Yeah. I mean, it was the easiest thing. Exactly. And I love your sense of humor. But some of the groups are still doing virtual, but most of them are doing, live now, which, there's never anything like doing it live, but
right.
At least having the platform of usually Zoom, the people can still get enjoyment out of it.
Sure. And of course, my experience with live events as a speaker, you really get charged from the audience, where when you're on a Zoom call, you don't know if your audience is out there. You don't know if they're laughing, sleeping, or, there's just crickets. So
no, you're absolutely right. It's a big difference. And the speakers kind of had to get used to that. Like Les Brown, God, he's one of the greatest of all time. But all of them, they had to get used to it because, like you said, you're used to feeding off of the audience. And many of the good speakers, as you know, just like you interact with the audience and you're walking around and you're not just at a podium. So you don't have the ability to do that on Zoom type of platforms. But
you'd better not. Your camera can't follow you that quick, right?
That's right. No, you're absolutely right, Coach. But thank goodness things have come back. Vegas is just booming now, and I'm sure it's the same with Orlando. So it's great to see everything back to the way we all love it the most.
And are you getting now more corporate event demand? You're seeing that build more and more in your pipeline?
Absolutely. Oh, no question. Since all of the, most of the COVID demands lifted and all the health restrictions, definitely. There's been a much bigger boom, but at least we're able, with that paradigm shift, to create still an interest. We were booking speakers. So at least we were doing them on the virtual side, but nothing compares to how it is now. Yeah. Big boom. Yes.
And what would you say to anyone out there who, first of all, of course, if anyone is thinking about an event and wants to have a celebrity, definitely you are the premier, you're the leader in the industry nationwide. So that's Celebrity Speakers. Bruce Merrin is president of that organization, and very, very qualified and very successful you've been. What would you say to anyone who is thinking about an event? Would they have to have a big budget to get a celebrity in there? Or
No, not at all. And Coach, what I'll share with you, I've always said this, and our 50-year anniversary, 50, will be in January. Me personally, I have never been a salesman. When I'm dealing with a certified meeting planner, I'm not there saying, hey, how do you like to book Steve Garvey today? Not at all. It's questions. I ask a lot of questions from the certified meeting planner. I want to find out, where's the location of the event? Is there a theme for the event? Who's in the audience? A lot of questions. And at the end, I will ask them, do you have a dream speaker that you'd like to book? Because if they do, I'll pursue that. But then at the very end, I'll ask them if they've established a budget. And once I find out the budget, then I'll recommend the speakers after I know the answers to all of the questions. But I'm not there to sell. I'm there to book the best kind of person.
Sure, and you're there to serve. And when you approach it as a service, you're there to help them with whatever resources they have to solve their issue, whatever that is.
Absolutely. And not everybody is going to pay the amount of money that Mr. Wonderful Kevin O'Leary gets. And I understand that. So that's why I say, when I find out the budget, we booked some speakers this year that were $5,000, which for our industry is considerably low. But yes, I still have booked people. So once I know what the budget is, I can then recommend people that kind of work within the budget. So again, my main thing is to make the certified meeting planners smile, because as you know, Coach, repeat business, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. And whatever business you're in the people business. So
that's right. And that's why I love it. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Well, you're certainly good at what you do, and I'm very happy and very lucky to have met you and heard some of these wonderful stories. I'd love to hear more. I know today's a big day for you because every 4 years you go out and select a brand new BMW, and today's the day for that. Yes. So we'll let you go ahead and get that done.
That's right. My BMW is waiting. But Coach, even in the celebrity area, and we were talking about movies, my very first BMW came in the late 90s. There was a James Bond film. I love the James Bond films. I'm a big fan. And in that film in the late 90s, James Bond drove a BMW. It was a Z3. It was a silver Z3. I had never bought a BMW before. Again, this is like 1998. I went into the BMW dealership. I said, I want that silver BMW Z3 Roadster. So I've been getting BMWs ever since. Yeah.
Well, you have to look the part to be the part.
Yes, that's right.
You certainly have lived it. We're honored to have had you here on the Mission Impossible show. Thank you again. Bruce Merrin, President of the Merrin's, the Professional Speakers Bureau in Las Vegas, Nevada, the entertainment capital of the world.
Thank you, Coach. It was an honor.
God bless.